Hello and welcome back to the GeoInsight, where we break down the world's most pressing geopolitical and global news stories, making sense of the events that define our times. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a crucial update. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's sending shockwaves through the United States and beyond: the recent deployment of federal troops and National Guard units to American cities under the Trump administration. What does this mean for American democracy, civil rights, and the very idea of public order? What are the long-term impacts on cities, the armed forces, and political precedent? Imagine waking up to military vehicles rolling down your street, not in a distant land, but right in your own American city. For many, this scenario seems straight out of a dystopian film, but in recent months, it has become a stark reality for thousands of U.S. citizens. Let's explore what led to this extraordinary moment, the controversies it has ignited, and why it matters so much, not just for America, but for the world. To understand the gravity of these troop deployments, we need to rewind the clock. The United States has often relied on law enforcement, local and sometimes state level, for dealing with unrest. However, this year, as protests erupted across the country, prompted by a multitude of issues ranging from racial injustice to pandemic frustrations, President Donald Trump authorized a significant and highly visible deployment of federal and, in some cases, National Guard forces to major American cities like Portland, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. Traditionally, federal troops deployed on U.S. soil is an extremely rare occurrence, typically reserved for dire emergencies. Think natural disasters or insurrections that local resources can't handle. So why these deployments now? The administration argued it was necessary to restore order as some protests evolved into vandalism and violence. But critics argue it was a political move to reinforce a message of law and order. Whatever your perspective, this marks a significant shift in the balance between local self-governance and federal power. One of the most notable aspects of these deployments is how fast they occurred and the sheer scale involved. Using federal agents and, in some cases, National Guard units, sometimes without clear identification, the administration responded quickly and forcefully to unrest. In cities like Portland, unmarked vehicles and unidentified officers detained protesters, a move that alarmed not only activists, but also a wide range of political leaders and civil rights organizations. In Chicago and other cities, the Guard was activated to support local police under the premise of protecting federal property and critical infrastructure. For many mayors and governors, this felt like an intrusion. There were clashes, not just between protesters and law enforcement, but also between city leaders and federal authorities over who should be in charge and how best to keep communities safe. The lines have blurred, raising new questions about the scope and limits of executive power. Let's put this into historical context. Federal troop deployments are not unprecedented. The most famous example is probably President Eisenhower sending the 101st Airborne to Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957 to enforce desegregation. There was overwhelming moral clarity there. Troops were sent to protect African American students integrating a public school. But what's different today is intent and context. Critics argue these deployments lack the same clear moral imperative and instead risk being used for political ends, especially as the country heads into a deeply divisive election cycle. There are also concerns that such moves could normalize the use of military force in domestic disputes, a path that some warn is dangerous for democracy. So why does it matter so much? First, it challenges the delicate balance between public order and civil liberties. The mere presence of troops can have a chilling effect on peaceful protest and public discourse. There are serious concerns about the use of force, the right to assemble, and potential violations of constitutional protections. Around the world, the federal use of troops within national borders often raises alarm bells about the direction of a country's governance, and the U.S. is now in the spotlight. Second, the decision sets a precedent. If this becomes the new normal, future presidents, regardless of their politics, may feel emboldened to use federal forces to solve domestic issues quickly, overriding local authorities. This is a major concern for those who believe in decentralized power and the authority of cities to manage their own affairs. The impact of these deployments is already being felt in cities around the country.
Many citizens report feeling less safe, not more so, knowing heavily armed troops are patrolling the streets. City officials argue that the presence of the military can escalate tensions rather than diffuse them, turning demonstrations into standoffs. For the National Guard and federal agents themselves, this is uncharted territory. Military personnel are trained for combat, not crowd control. Many Guard members are students, parents, and workers pulled from their daily lives into a tense and unfamiliar role. There are concerns that repeated domestic deployments could strain morale, readiness, and even recruitment for these forces in the long run. The National Guard occupies a unique position, part military, part civilian. On the one hand, they can provide critical support during disasters, think hurricanes, wildfires, and now a pandemic. On the other, their increased involvement in crowd control raises questions about the Guard's future identity and mission. Some experts warn that the more the Guard is seen as an extension of federal force rather than as a state-run emergency helper, the more trust could erode between the public and those who serve them. The increasing exposure to politically charged situations could also damage the Guard's nonpartisan standing. Let's talk about the legacy of these decisions. Civic trust is fragile. Once eroded, it's difficult to rebuild. Residents in affected cities may come to associate government response not with aid or support, but with intimidation and force. On the military side, deploying troops repeatedly within the U.S. could erode the traditional separation between civilian and military spheres, one of the foundational principles of American democracy. It could also mean future military leaders are increasingly asked to pick sides on domestic issues, another risky trend. It's not just Americans who are taking note. The world is watching, and for many, the U.S. has often held itself up as a global model for democratic governance. When those who advocate for democracy abroad are seen to falter at home, using troops to quell unrest, it has consequences for America's credibility on the world stage. As geopolitical rivals look for moments of weakness to exploit, actions at home can have repercussions in the dynamic balance of international relations. Allies ask tough questions. Adversaries find new talking points. American actions echo far, reminding us just how interconnected domestic and global reputations have become. Will these troop deployments continue as an emergency measure, or have they set a new precedent for federal intervention in local matters? Much depends on the choices of future administrations, political leaders, and, critically, on the opinions and actions of ordinary citizens. In the coming weeks and months, Americans face a crucial debate about the role of federal power, the importance of civil liberties, and the responsibilities of those sworn to defend both. How these questions are answered could reshape American democracy and global politics for years. What do you think? Are troop deployments a necessary response to chaos, or do they risk overriding local authority and civil rights? Have you witnessed these events in your city? Let us know in the comments below. Your voice matters. If you found this analysis engaging and insightful, please hit the like button, share this video with friends who follow global events, and subscribe to the GeoInsight for your trusted guide to world affairs. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and see you in the next video.